Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this sunny Tuesday afternoon. We are excited to talk to you today about how to use federal Perkins funding, career and technical student organizations, and other programs, and use these to and how they can be leveraged to provide work-based learning opportunities for students. This is the last webinar in a work-based learning webinar series sponsored by Iowa Workforce Development and the Iowa Department of Education. My name is Heather Meissen, and I am the Administrative Consultant for Career and Technical Education at the Iowa Department of Education. In my role, I oversee regional planning partnerships, industry-recognized credentials, and work-based learning, and I also support career and academic planning and computer science work. I am joined today by several co-presenters. We'll have Kathy Leggett from Iowa Workforce Development, Cale Hutchings and Amy Vibriel from the Iowa Department of Education, and Iowa's newest Teacher of the Year and Ag Instructor at Sioux Central High School, Melanie Bloom. I will let each one of them introduce themselves in more detail as they present. My colleague, Kathy Leggett, will be facilitating the question and answer portion of today's webinar. During today's presentation, I will give a brief overview of Perkins 5, including some data and accountability measures. I will then turn it over to my co-presenters to discuss how Perkins can be used to fund work-based learning initiatives, how career and technical student organizations, or CTSOs, can be used to increase the number of work-based learning opportunities for students, and how one particular CTSO, FFA, and its related supervised ag experiences can be used for work-based learning. Throughout this presentation, if you have any questions, we would like you to enter those questions into the chat or the Q&A section of the webinar. If there's time, we will also be able to answer questions you might have at the end of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted to Iowa Workforce Development's WBL series webpage at workforce.iowa.gov/WBL-series. It will also be sent out to everyone who registered for today's webinar. All right, so to get started, I want to talk a little bit about Perkins 5 and what that means. So much of the financial support to maintain high-quality CTE programs comes from Perkins 5 funding. The Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 21st Century Act, or Perkins 5, provides nearly $1.4 billion annually to support CTE programs across the nation. The amount of money that each state and each local community receives is determined by poverty levels and population. For fiscal year 25, Iowa's Perkins 5 federal grant allocation was a little over $14.5 million. Funds are split with 50% of the money going to high schools and 50% going to Iowa's community colleges. 3% of funds are reserved and used for special statewide initiatives such as the CCTC initiative and our latest IRC grant. Recipients of Perkins 5 funding are required to complete a comprehensive local needs assessment when making decisions on where to direct the Perkins funds. The comprehensive local needs assessment is a requirement for local recipients under Perkins 5 that helps to guide the use of this funding. It involves evaluating local workforce needs, student performance, program quality, and accessibility in CTE programs to address gaps. Perkins funds can be used for a variety of things to support CTE programming, such as professional development, the development and improvement of programs of study, career exploration, data collection and analysis, and career and technical student organizations. Perkins 5 also contains provisions in the law that prioritize expanding access to and supporting success within CTE programs for 9 special populations. These special populations include out-of-workforce individuals, English learners, individuals experiencing homelessness, individuals with disabilities, single parents, including single pregnant women, youth who are in or have aged out of the foster care system, individuals preparing for careers that are non-traditional for their gender, youth with a parent who is a member of the armed forces or is on active duty, and individuals from economically disadvantaged families, such as low-income youth and adults. Just a little bit of data related to Perkins funding and the types of students that benefit from Perkins funding. In 2023 and 24, 68.7% of total high school students were enrolled in at least one CTE course. And then the percentage of students enrolled in at least 4 or more courses in high school was 23.6% of those high school CTE students. The top career clusters for high school students taking at least one course were agriculture, food and natural resources, business management and administration, human services, and architecture and construction. As high school students developed interest in pursuing a career pathway by taking multiple CTE courses, business management and administration moved to the top of that list. At the post-secondary level, 10.1% of community college students participate in CTE programming, with health sciences, architecture and construction, manufacturing, and business cluster areas having the most interest. The career clusters with the most enrollment for students earning 12 or more credits are health sciences, architecture and construction, agriculture, and manufacturing. With accountability of results being a central focus of Perkins 5, states are required to post annually on core indicators of performance at both the secondary and post-secondary levels. This slide contains the Perkins accountability indicators that are measured in the state of Iowa. These include, but are not limited to, graduation rates, academic proficiency, participation in work-based learning, and post-program and post-secondary placement, which includes employment, enrollment at a college, or military participation. We will also be measuring a new indicator related to the percentage of students who attain industry-recognized credentials, or IRCs, or a community college award, such as a certificate or diploma at the secondary level. This indicator was already being measured for post-secondary CTE. The data that we are collecting around IRCs will also be used as one of the post-secondary readiness indicators for the school performance profiles. In addition to collecting stakeholder feedback during the writing of our new 4-year Perkins State Plan, we were also required to set state-determined levels of performance for each of these accountability indicators. States must achieve at least 90% of these goals to be considered successful in their CT programs. Historically in Iowa, we have met or exceeded these state-determined levels of performance. Our new metrics for the next 4 years, which were approved after extensive public feedback, are ambitious but align with our commitment to student success in CT programming. I am now going to turn it over to my colleague Amy, who will talk about how to use Perkins funding for work-based learning initiatives.
Thank you, Heather. So work-based learning was first authorized in Perkins federal statute in 1984. So it has been recognized in Perkins 2, 3, 4, and 5 since 1984. And has been recognized in those 3 iterations of Perkins in 1990, when it was reauthorized in 98 with 2006 with WIOA, and in 2018. It is authorized under Section 135, which is under the local uses of funds. So those are all sub-recipients, the 75 school districts and consortia, and also work-based learning with the 15 community colleges. Perkins defines work-based learning as in Activity 5 as an activity that supports career and tech ed and increases student achievement by establishing a continuum of work-based learning activities. The states do have broad authority to define what constitutes rigorous and robust work-based learning activities. When Iowa wrote our first 5-year plan, that meant anything from job shadowing to level 1 and 2 internships. With our second go around, we have instituted from broad to more robust and high impact work-based learning activities. The historical funding of work-based learning over the last 40 years has reduced the eligibility of general work-based learning activities over time. As non-federal funding begins to replace costs once paid for with Perkins, costs become no longer eligible because of supplanting, and I'll dive into that in just a few minutes here. Work-based learning initiatives become funded at the local level over time with non-federal funds, general funds, grants, one-time grants, 3-year grants, and so on. So what was once funded at the federal level at some point is no longer eligible with federal funding. Next slide, please. So we're going to review a few things that 40 years ago were eligible over time, have been funded at the local level or state level, and have ultimately become ineligible at the federal level. One thing that is nice over time is that as our programs evolve and become more sophisticated, a lot of things, especially those of you with boots on the ground, are really digging into quality work-based learning, quality pre-apprenticeships, registered apprenticeships. There are very nuanced and specific activities that do become eligible because they have never been funded with Perkins or with other federal funding sources. So it's really important for those of you who are heavily involved in this work and making intricate connections with the business and industry community to recognize that those things that have never been funded at the federal level before, and earmark those things, ask questions, especially at the federal level. Give me a call and see if those things have ever been funded in the past, because then you can use federal Perkins funding for those. But so the allowable costs in general, advertising to recruit work-based learning personnel for CTE programs. So this speaks to what I just talked about. Work-based learning positions are not new, but there may be job duties that didn't exist 40 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 2 years ago, that you find yourself confronting, especially with AI, new technology, new and emerging technology that come into this space where it never has been funded either at your local level or the federal level. If you run across that, it's a great idea to hold that aside, make sure that you don't use general funds for that or non-federal funds, and check with somebody at the federal level or the state level to see if that's eligible for Perkins funding. If it is, that's a rare find, and if you'd like to use Perkins, you can. Website creation, that's often a new specific to work-based learning opportunities. You can use federal funding for that. Often we don't come in contact with equipment or training fees specific to work-based learning simulation issues, but that also sometimes does pop up. Industry recognized credentials. We're doing lots of new and innovative things with IRCs. If there are IRCs that haven't been funded related to work-based learning, that are new and emerging, often that can be a new cost that you can pay for with federal funds as well. Professional development with work-based learning. So again, with AI, new technology, anything that we haven't touched over the last or have come into this realm over the last 40 years, new and emerging technology, keep your eye on that. If we can fund it for the first time with federal funding, let us know and we'll check into that. Next slide, please. So our unallowable costs. The takeaway with unallowable, if it's ever been funded federally and then has gone to non-federal funding, general fund, district fund, grant funding, it is no longer eligible to be funded by Perkins. That is known as supplanting. The second form of supplanting would be anything that is in Iowa code, federal code, or local code. So if it is required at the federal, state, or local level, and an example of that would be a career information system that would have plenty of work-based learning opportunities uploaded into that. In Iowa, the career information systems are required by 271.69. That is ineligible for reimbursement because it is required by Iowa code. So if that's the case with any work-based learning statute in Iowa code, it may not be funded with Perkins. Several other things here. So marketable credentials, endorsements, MOC, train the trainers, those are all ineligible with Perkins funding as well. Marketing, any activities. Unfortunately, transportation, that is ineligible with Perkins funding as well. And that is because districts provide transportation to all other students, non-CTE students, for other activities, other academic reasons, other intracurricular activities. So districts are required to provide that to your work-based learning students as well. Next slide, please. So just a couple takeaways here for work-based learning. Perkins funding is reserved for new programs or initiatives that have not yet been funded, and they are intended to make transformational changes and improvements to CTE. So just because we've been doing work-based learning for many decades, we still have a lot of new and exciting and innovative projects within work-based learning. So any nuance, anything you can find, like I've said, that we have not funded in the past, that comes up, hold off before you use general funds. Let's make sure that it, maybe if it is eligible for federal funding, and you can protect that and use federal funds for a couple years. Check it out, ask us, and if we can pay for it with Perkins, we will. If that's how you choose to go with that. Another big takeaway, of course, is once a school funds an activity with another source, then Perkins is cut off for funding that in the future. Let's see, two last points I would like to make. Any kinds of consumables for student-based enterprise, those are ineligible. Programs may not use federal funding or federal taxpayer dollars to open student entrepreneurship opportunities that may compete with other businesses. And then individual benefits are ineligible too. So those would be memberships into professional organizations, or things like credit coursework at the baccalaureate level or beyond. But other things that are robust, high quality apprenticeships, anything options that are go with the new definitions of high quality work-based learning, especially with new and innovative technology. Let's definitely take a look at those. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and I can help you with that. Thank you. Passing it on to Kale.
Thanks, Amy. So you got a little bit of information kind of surrounding the details and the expenditures and how to fund some of these initiatives. I really am excited to kind of share with the group some of the things that are happening out in the field in terms of that linkage between our career and technical student organizations and work-based learning. So kind of a really brief overview, but just some reminders. So those of you that are maybe maybe standing up a career and technical student organization for a program, or some of you that have been involved with this or have a fully developed CTSO within your program, the main points for these organizations really center around leadership opportunities for students. Not only the leadership opportunities in terms of skill proficiency and skill building in terms of a pathway, but also leadership opportunities in terms of communication, professional aptitude, and components like this that we definitely hear from all stakeholders that the importance of something like that. So leadership opportunities, professional development for both students and educators, that's something that we want to kind of dive into just a little bit more as we work through. CTSOs do provide that access point for our career connected learning, both the definition that we're kind of revitalizing with our work-based learning definition, as well as kind of the introductory steps or some of those career exploration moments leading up to that work-based learning experience. We also feature those competitions, those skill-based competitions that can really, again, link that professional world with the classroom. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then networking opportunities, which is, very, very critical in terms of really shining a light on that student and letting that light sort of shine onto the interest of a business and industry partner. Some of you that work in that space probably have conversations to start work-based learning experiences, maybe to open some doors that for opportunities that had not been there before. And I think some of our business and industry partners will say, send me the best, or send me that student that we know is dependable, or something like that. And so here is a way to really highlight those students that are high-flying, high-achieving students that are ready for the experience that business and industry partner can provide. This can easily identify them. This can work on those skills by participating in that CTSO, and really, again, serve as that entry point or access point. And that's kind of the key term that I want to kind of drive home as we work through the slides. So if we want to advance that slide. So CTSOs in Iowa feature the following organizations. We have a alignment for each of our content areas to 1, 2, possibly 3 different CTSOs that really feature curriculum, content, competitive events, and leadership training aligned to particular pathways. And so, it goes without saying that some of these emblems really are more recognizable than others in terms of brand placement. So that could also be something you consider as you're opening those doors with business and industry partners to place those students. That is a very critical part to this, and really allowing those students to lead the way to create that connection. Next slide. So CTSOs can, and what can they do? What can they provide? I think as I mentioned before, our career technical student organizations can serve as a point of contact. What I mean by that is really when you are developing that plan of work, the year's activities for that career and technical student organization, how can you engage and involve business and industry partners to kind of learn more about your program as an educator, learn more about what you are doing in that program. And so this could be something where your officer team, your leadership team for that career and technical student organization could develop sort of that communications piece with business and industry partners that they want to bring to the table, that they want to have those work-based learning experiences with, and that they want to connect with moving forward as a potential employer in the future. Another thing that everyone should consider is really how that career and technical student organization can engage alumni of your program. Alumni that have since moved into the workforce, they know what that program is all about. They know what experiences they've had as a student member of that organization. And really that can be some common ground that you could approach as you are kind of working towards setting up that experience. So again, we back this up. I'll mention it one more time, that the CTSO can really serve as that access point for business and industry partners to engage with students, to engage with those high achieving students that are going to be the ones that successfully complete those work-based learning experiences. Another thing that I do want to kind of mention is how chapter officer teams or chapter leaders can be empowered to sort of make the ask. A lot of teachers, have tons on their plate, lots of things going. And one of the things that I have seen around the state in terms of success and really growing the chapter and establishing those relationships is having the students make the ask in terms of the engagement, in terms of our career exploration, guest speaker, industry tour, all the way out to highlighting those students that are ready for that opportunity based on the success that they've had maybe in the competitive events. Another component that we can talk about leading into those competitive events is, how can we link the worlds together? The world of the, academic school type of scenario, bridging that out to that work-based learning experience. I think that's something that we at the department, as well as our colleagues at Iowa Workforce Development, are really, really working to understand what that landscape is, working to develop those relationships, working to produce these webinars to bring people, the information that they need. Competitive event preparation can link those worlds together. The competitive events for all of our career and technical student organizations are vetted by business and industry partners on a national level. Those are kind of funneled down and scaled appropriately for things like district and regional and state conferences. And so I encourage, chapter leaders here on this call or folks that might be watching it at another time to really try to reach out to those industry experts that you have access to and invite them in to help prepare for those competitive events. They're going to learn more about your organization. They're going to learn more about the student, and they're going to help those students refine their skill set to be ready again to engage in that work-based learning experience as those things come together. So we do hear a lot of success stories where, for example, a plumbing competition at Skills USA, the instructor, the advisor for the chapter may not have a deep skill set with plumbing, but there is a local plumbing company that wants to engage in a work-based learning experience. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to recruit the students. They don't know, what's happening in the program. That invitation from a student competitor gearing up for the competition is placed out to that company. That company engages, comes to the school, helps them prepare. In a lot of cases, that student will go to their workplace, help them prepare, help them have success in the competition, create that connection, create that access point, and really, again, bridge those worlds together to allow that student to then have a connection, build the network, and again, set the stage for a successful work-based learning opportunity, internship, pre-apprenticeship, all the way out to a registered apprenticeship. So I really like to promote those. CTSOs can really elevate students in the eyes of the business partner. Again, the leadership component that they learn, public speaking, etiquette, different components like this can all, again, really put that student's best foot forward when having those initial conversations that are so critical to the success and the pipeline that your program wants to create with that business partner. That is a really great component talking about, I have a student, they placed first at state competition in plumbing. They placed first in the state competition for, fill in the blank. All of these CTSOs have their competitive events. And so that is, what a carrot that you can put out there for that business and industry partner to engage on, to say, okay, I know that I'm getting someone with a skill set, with some experience, with a little bit of practice, and also in that competitive realm that can, really be successful when they are placed. The other component to this, as we kind of work through the definition of work-based learning, is really the fact that your CTSO can lead that school-based enterprise in so many different ways. You're looking at, districts kind of working towards helping to fund the CTSO with their school-based enterprise. This is engaging students in relevant pathway-related work experience that they are getting at that high school or community college level. And bridging those two things where that student is getting the experience, getting the leadership component, refining their skills, perhaps picking up an industry recognized credential while they're working in that school-based enterprise. This gives them some great talking points, some great experience as they move forward. And again, work towards that business and industry engagement and link up with that work-based learning experience. CTSOs can be the catalyst for business and industry partnerships. There are so many ways to do it. And I know our special guest speaker in the next component will also kind of tap into things in the FFA sphere on how they've had success as well. Next slide. So where can you start? There's so many different places to start. It can be probably quite a bit overwhelming. Some people kind of maybe just gear towards a state conference or worry about something like that initially. And that's great if that's something that is on your radar. You have the drive as an educator or administrator to help facilitate. But, again, starting small, scaling appropriately can be the best first steps to creating something sustainable. I think the very first part to this is to start a dialogue with the CTSO that you're aligning to or chartering your chapter with state director. The state director serves as kind of that contact point between your chapter and the national level and some of the initiatives that the national organizations are undertaking. For example, uh, at the National Work-Based Learning Conference for ACTE, all of the CTSO national directors were in attendance. They are all road mapping and creating resources as many states are spooling up and standing up, more robust work-based learning programming. And so they're going to really be able to get you in contact with somebody at the national office that can provide you the resources that fit your exact, needs and what you're looking for there. So, really consider that right off the bat with all the resources from the state director's chair. The next thing to think about is develop a program of work for your chapter. I think this is important not only for your officers or your student leaders to kind of see what a program of work will look like, but there's also an opportunity there to be very uh, be very forward about wanting to work with business and industry partners and creating a space for that in your program of work kind of puts down on paper what you intend to do and how you intend to do it. One thing that I love to see, and I think is having an overwhelming success rate, and again, bridging the gap and connecting both worlds, is having your chapter lead your advisory committee, having those students create the program for your chapter advisor, for your program advisory committee. Can be, really, really beneficial. It can give the students some extra practice in public speaking and working, sending emails and thank you letters and invitations and all those things in between. Um, Again, invite those business partners to help practice the career skills that will be put to the test during competitive events. These are low-level asks that require $0 as you initially build that communication line. And so proving your chapter and proving those students kind of in these small ways can, again, help to build, bigger opportunities in the future. And as I mentioned just a little bit above, national resources can develop that high high quality career connected learning opportunity. All of our career and technical organizations have numerous pieces of curriculum that can be integrated into your classroom during your school day, during that class time, to help not only refine those career pathway specific skills, but as I mentioned several times in my section today, that leadership opportunity, those workforce readiness skills that are such a priority for those folks that are going into that work-based learning experience. So to sum it all up, CTSOs are the access point. They can bridge both worlds. There are tons of success stories out there and many more emerging across the state. We're headed into state conference season. We're probably right in the middle of it. And so we've had some very successful state conferences for all of our CTSOs and a couple of them upcoming this week and next week as well. Any opportunity that you have to engage in that space, to see what's going on, to learn more about some of those organizations that are emerging in your district, in your classroom, will be beneficial to you. And feel free to contact me at the department or any of our colleagues on the call to kind of get more information or ask for some of those resources that I alluded to as you are standing up these chapters, continuing the work that you're doing, or wanting to make that connection. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Heather and we can move on to the next section.
All right. Thank you, Cale. Next, I want to hand it over to Melanie Bloom, who will talk about what they're doing at Sioux Central School District.
Thank you so much for allowing me to join you all. About 10 years ago, I was on Capitol Hill and remember talking to some aides and legislators, and I heard a quote that has really stuck with me since then. Career and technical education is a jobs program or is a works program. And I think that helps us when we frame this conversation in that way, that we are preparing these students for careers before they graduate from high school rather than retraining as adults. And so that's something that has driven a lot of what I do. I appreciate Amy's guidance on costs and Perkins. That's really helpful. I'm taking notes about as fast as they're talking. And then I just want to echo everything Cale said about CTSOs and those connections for students in terms of leadership, skill development, teamwork. In my experience, there's no better way for students to learn career skills with teammates in a safe environment before it's going to be critical for them before they get into actual jobs. So if you would advance the slide, please. Supervised agricultural experiences, or SAE, have been around since the 19-teens. They are part of the three-circle model in agricultural education. And so we feel like we've been doing it pretty well in ag ed for over a century. And we have millions of great stories. And I think a lot of other career and tech ed programs can say the same thing in the opportunities that we're providing for students. However, early on and even up until probably my childhood in the 1980s, the focus was really on production agriculture. And about 10 years ago, some conversations started having about leadership identifying a need for more authentic and accessible models with more intentional career exploration for our students. And so they developed this new SAE for All model that essentially has two levels. The first level is foundational. Every student in my classroom completes at least 5 to 10 hours of foundational SAE experiences every year. Majority of those are done in class, but some are outside of class. So every year I have students assess their career interests. We look at employability skills at different levels. We talk about financial management, whether it's applying for scholarships for college or just talking about monthly budgets with students and how we're spending our money. Workplace safety is incredibly important. Agriculture and some of the other industries that some of us represent are known to be fairly dangerous occupations. And so we really want to place some emphasis on that. And we place some value on earning certifications related to workplace safety. And then ag literacy is the last one that we spend just a little bit of time on. So that is required for every single student in my classroom every semester, every year. The students who stay in the program for more than a semester or more than a year are strongly encouraged to dig a little deeper, and hence the immersion experience title. So we have students that are completing internships. Hopefully they're gaining skills, they're improving leadership, they're taking on additional responsibilities in somebody else's workplace. We also have students that start entrepreneurships. Again, oftentimes both of these can be very production ag focused, especially in rural areas, but we're starting to see more and more students take on non-production focus and gain some skills related to other careers. Service learning projects is kind of a new category for us in ag in Iowa for FFA. And I'm excited to see some of the service learning projects that are taking place. And I'll go back and share a couple of examples of each of these in a minute. But I love the service learning component because it doesn't require unpaid hours or paid hours. We're not so much worried about is there money coming in or money going out. It's really about identifying a need either in the local community or even globally, and then working to satisfy that need. Research experiences, which again look very, very different than the old internship placement and entrepreneurship opportunities for students, where they identify a question they're very interested in and they're encouraged to conduct research. So we have students that are considering, you know, are we going to patent a product? Are we going to sell a great idea to an agribusiness? Or are we going to develop a new agribusiness that could really impact the local economy based on that research project? And then school-based, I think, is probably our area of greatest opportunity in rural school districts in Iowa. And so this is where I want to go back and talk about it. So for example, if I have a student that identifies a lot of interest in food science, chemistry, food safety, and we don't have a food processing facility in our school district, that can be a little bit tricky to get internships and entrepreneurships put together. And so if we're able to create some school-based projects, that gives our students a little bit of an opportunity that they might not otherwise have. So I'm going to steal some ideas from other ag teachers, not necessarily my own. I know Midland in Wyoming has a barbecue team, and they are selling now bottled barbecue sauce as a school-based project. And there's several other schools that have some really great greenhouse projects where we're selling products to the community, starting some farmers markets, doing some etching and laser engraving items, custom made items. So there's a lot of room, I think, for growth in school-based. And I think over the next year, I'm going to get to talk to quite a few other people about what does this look like in Iowa, especially rural districts where we don't have a lot of opportunities with interests. If you would advance the slide, please. Along with all of those, there's obviously some practical and logistical items. Most importantly, probably thinking about those things is we got to think about how are we keeping records on that, or how are we tracking that? Iowa Agricultural Education, primarily we use the Agricultural Experience Tracker, which now has a CTE, like a little bit more generic version that's not FFA and ag specific. It is open to anybody with students that are doing work-based learning. And we love this program. I probably should have shared a screenshot of this one, but it's been a great way to track not only our CTSO involvement in FFA, but primarily our work-based learning and our SAE records. So hours, dollars, skills gained, competencies, and also even classroom activities and some other items that we feel are important to track. It's also important, I think, I'm going to echo again what Kale said about advisory committees and making sure that your advisory committee is on board, and making sure that our focus on local individual student accessibility and gains before we dive into awards and contests at a higher level. So we are discussing questions at the state level. As far as my first question listed there is one that I'm probably going to be spending some time focusing on the next year, as I mentioned previously, is making all areas of agricultural education, biotechnology, food science, natural resources, environmental science, service systems, ag business, plant systems, animal systems, all of them accessible to all students in all districts, especially where those systems may not exist. Dealing or making opportunities accessible, again, for those students that take one semester or 1 year and don't complete the program. We think about minors working in places where privacy issues, data security, confidentiality can be an issue, such as health occupations, banks, financial institutions, law offices, and so on and so forth. So those are some conversations we're having as well. And along with that, safety, right? students under the age of 18 sometimes are not admitted access into, for example, a local ethanol plant or co-op to do internships or more than just job shadow hours. And so those are all conversations that we're having, and a few others listed there that I'm really excited to learn a little bit more over the next year. And I hope we have some fruitful conversations where we can break down some barriers for our students. So I'd be happy to visit about any of this with anybody if I can shed some light, but just appreciate the opportunity to talk about what we're doing in Ag Ed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melanie. This is Kathy Leggett. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm with Iowa Workforce Development, and just here to share a little bit of information. And in the meantime, while I do this, if you have questions that you want to ask right now, we do have a few minutes, so go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll take a look at that. But just in case, these have been shared multiple times, but you know, there's never too many opportunities, I think, to share it, is that some resources here for you. There's recordings, PowerPoints on the webinar series that has been going on for quite some time, and there's a lot of great information in that. So I encourage anybody to take a look at that menu and the resources. We also have the work-based learning course naming and coding resource there. Key, I go back to it many times when I'm talking work-based learning, just to make sure that I'm on track with what the legislation said and what the coding document says. So you want to keep that handy. And then here's links for the work-based learning newsletters that come out, I think, monthly. Heather, you can shake your head, but yeah, monthly. So encourage you to get your name on the list for those. Even if you don't fall into one of those groups, it's great information. So, and easily just coming right to your email, your email box, and then also the link to Career Connected Learning website. So lots of great resources and information. And if and I have a couple of other things that I just want to share. I think you can go to the last slide, what I think will be the last slide. And yep, there is my contact information and Heather's. We can be, you know, your point of contact and conduit into all of these resources that we have gone over. And, you know, maybe you're not sure who is it I'm supposed to reach out to, or who's somebody who can help me with this. And so just please reach out to Heather or myself, and we will get you connected on anything and everything work-based learning that we can. So I want to thank, well, before I'm finished, I do have just a couple of things I wanted to highlight that, and I wasn't here quite at the beginning, so I missed out on a little bit, I know, but I wanted to highlight a couple things, Melanie, that you shared. So thankful that you could join us, and what a resource you are. So you mentioned, you talked about CTE being kind of described as a jobs program or a workforce program. And I wanted to just highlight that, because as I work with Iowa Workforce Development, you know, and get to see so many different things across the state, employers and school districts, adults, youth. What I think about a lot is how great it is when we have the opportunity to graduate anyone from high school who has already developed a skill, and especially a skill in a high demand occupation or in something that's needed. And that is whether they're going to post-secondary, you know, traditional post-secondary or not, because no matter what, to have a skill gives you, you know, it gives you some confidence, it gives you some security, it gives you a backup plan if something doesn't work out. If you are going post-secondary, then maybe you can work part-time and make some good money to support it. If you are full-time in something, you know, I've come across people, something happens with their family, something happens with something, and they have to step out of college. They have a backup plan. Plus, we're preparing people for the workforce in a way that our workforce really needs it. So I really wanted to highlight on that, because I felt like that was a great description. And then also wanted to say so excited to see what you learn in the next year, because also from the workforce standpoint, and you know what, sorry, I missed some of everybody else's, because then I could have gone through everybody's PowerPoint and said what was great about it, because I know you all shared a lot of great information. But I also just wanted to highlight the fact that the ag, like expanding the ag to everybody. We are an agricultural state, I just think that's wonderful, because whether you live in the city or the rural or wherever, and even a small town, but you could be in a small town, but maybe you're not on a farm. We still have ag everywhere in the state of Iowa, and proudly so. And so I think it's a great opportunity for everyone to get more knowledge about that work that is available here, and all of the advances and all the contributions that people in our state make. So anyway, I'll be done off my soapbox right now, but I just wanted to thank you for those comments, because I just think it's so connected to how we're trying to put education and the workforce together. So thank you. And again, thank you, Kale and Amy and Heather, for all the information you shared. I know it was valuable. I haven't seen, let's see, I don't see anybody in the chat. So I think we'll just do a sign off a few minutes early, and thank everybody. So have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.